they would make them prove, this is the testimony of these victims, they would have to prove that they were underage, or they would have to prove that they were victims in order to get a video down, if they even had an answer at all. Because we also have uncovered that Pornhub had 1,800 employees, okay? They're making hundreds of millions of dollars a year. They employed one person 5 days a week to be reviewing videos flagged by users for violating terms of service, including child sexual abuse, rape, and trafficking. And they had a policy where you had to flag a video 15 times in order for it to be put in queue for review. And they had a backlog of 706,000 flagged videos. And that means a victim could flag their video 15 times. It wouldn't even have been put in line for review. These are those intentional policy decisions that I'm talking about. And so these victims, they would beg for them to come down. They would be hassled. But even if they did get it down, it would just get re-uploaded again, right, and again and again and again. And at some point, they just give up. Some of them become suicidal. We know now that this is actually a life and death issue for victims. The stakes are so high because, surveys are showing that 50% of these victims of this kind of distribution of these non-consensual sexual images, child sexual abuse, they have suicidal ideations. Many of them consider suicide. Some of them actually attempt it. Many of them do. And that's what happens to these victims. And so, it's just tragic what's allowed to happen and intentionally done, and going to holding them accountable. We can hold them accountable. We are holding them accountable, thanks to the help of many people. We're not there yet, but Pornhub was forced to take down 91% of their content. From when this began to today, we now have numbers. I just kind of got new numbers yesterday that they have been forced to take down 91% of that website. They went from 56 million pieces of content down to 5.2 million. They've lost Visa, MasterCard, and Discover, have cut them off completely after a huge multi-year battle for that to happen. So the credit card companies were the ones that were enabling them to monetize this illegal content, including trafficking and child sexual abuse, and they were getting a cut of each transaction.
Was that your doing?
Well, it was the doing of many people who've joined together. We've had 600 organizations participate in what's called Trafficking Hub movement. Lawyers, journalists, most of all, survivors who've come forward to courageously tell their stories.
And how did you get the credit card companies on board?
Well, it was a huge battle. Some of these conversations, behind the scenes conversations with the credit card executives, are verbatim recounted in my book, Takedown. And you can kind of go on that journey of having to battle with them to show them evidence after evidence after evidence that they were actually, in the words of a federal judge. So Visa is currently being sued by these survivors for their relationship with Pornhub. A federal judge in California, Cormac Carmi, he said Visa gave Pornhub the very tool through which to complete the crime of knowingly benefiting from child trafficking. Finally, the New York Times did an explosive article at the end of 2020. Two-time Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Nicholas Kristof that kind of sent shockwaves around the world. The pressure was on, and they actually ended up announcing they were cutting ties with Pornhub at that point. But we found out that they actually snuck back 2 weeks later to the advertising arm behind the scenes to continue monetizing this content with Pornhub. And it was another 2-year battle to finally get them to cut off Pornhub once and for all. And that's kind of how it happened, thanks to lawsuits, thanks to public pressure. And Bill Ackman actually was a huge help. He knew the CEO of MasterCard, and he, was moved by that article in the New York Times. And he actually contacted Ajay Banga and said, you need to do the right thing here. And he helped, at that point, all the way for the next 2 years. He actually got him and I onto Squawk Box on CNBC to call out Al Kelly by name and, say, why are you you have to stop and actually
what was your rationale?
Well,
from Visa and the credit card companies for participating in this?
Well, they kind of had this attitude of, we're very, very concerned.
Yeah.
We hate trafficking as much as you do, blah, blah,
That
blah.
seems unlikely, given that you've devoted your life to it.
But, you know, it was just always kind of an excuse. Well, you know, we'll just keep sending us more information. Keep sending us more information. We're very concerned. Keep sending us more information. And Visa actually sent a letter that said they weren't going to do anything because they're not in the business of policing legal and consensual material. When they had evidence that this was not legal and consensual material, that so much of it, the site was actually infested with videos of real sexual crime. And they were earning a cut of each of those videos. And they're currently being sued by dozens of child victims in lawsuits in California. And they lost their motion to dismiss. They said, we're going to dismiss this case. We are not responsible here. They lost their motion to dismiss.
When was that?
And that was in 2022. That was the moment that really helped tip the scale. So it was a combination of Visa losing their motion to dismiss, you know, Bill Ackman coming in and helping us put on the pressure, you know, from a public pressure perspective, calling out the CEO like that, combined with the litigation, I think was the combination that finally forced Visa to announce that they were going to cut off Pornhub once and for all, and then MasterCard and Discover.